Trump isn't just assembling a team, he's casting a movie, and the left can't stand it. He's collecting disruptors from every corner of American culture. They're not just qualified, they're ready to drop bunker buster bombs into every aspect of the government. And many of these people are clients of AJ Rice, who's my guest, the owner of Publius PR and author of several books that we're going to be talking about today on 1819 News, the podcast. We have an incredible culture here in the state of Alabama, but our politics and public policy don't reflect the people of Alabama. Media drives culture. Culture is what drives politics and public policy. Welcome, everyone, to 1819 News, the podcast. I'm Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News and host of this here podcast, where we are in pursuit of a free and flourishing Alabama every single week. We've got an incredible episode for you today with a hot topic, a topic that was not till very long ago taboo to even talk about, but that's what we like to talk about here on this podcast and on 1819 News is all the things you're not supposed to. And with that, I'm going to be bringing on a guest, AJ Rice, who's a publicist with Publius PR, which is one of the hottest PR firms in the country with huge clients. I'm going to let him kind of describe what he does, but he's the author, on top of running Publius PR, he's the author of the White Privilege album, bringing racial harmony to very fine people on both sides. If you remember the Very Fine People hoax and how he said, there's very fine people on both sides. So I thought that was a great play on words. And also the author of The Woking Dead, How Society's Vogue Virus Destroys Our Culture. And this is probably one of the most important topics that we can talk about in this current moment. And we have to talk about these topics fearlessly. And that's what we plan to do today. And so, AJ, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Brian, great to be here. Big shout out to the very fine people. I know they're watching today. Right?
Yes,
I know they're watching. They're tuning in. They always want to know, we might have another summer of love this summer. So the very fine people, I'm sure, when the Summer of Love Part 2 shows back up here, I'm sure the very fine people hoax and the rest of the other race hoaxes will rear their ugly head as usual.
Every time, every single time. Well, tell us just a little bit about yourself. Specifically, I'm intrigued by Publius PR. On the inside of your book, it's got some incredible names and big names. But even in our conversation pre-recording about some folks in the White House. So talk a little bit about Publius PR, and then how in the world being in that world did you decide, you know what, I'm gonna write a couple books on woke nonsense.
Sure. Great to be here again, man. So the brief history of time is I'm from Philly. I want to apologize to all the people in the South listening right now. You're gonna get an accent here. Not the kind not the kind you want. You probably haven't heard this accent since 1861. But the point but the point is, I worked on the Hill for a while. I helped win a special election almost 20 years ago, and then I was in broadcasting. As more of a behind-the-scenes person, I was the executive producer of the Laura Ingraham Show. Big shout out to what was it? WYDE down there in Alabama. We used to come on after Michael Hart. So Laura had some on-air sidekicks: AJ, Matt, Lee. Well, I was the AJ.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Were you there when Lee Habib was there?
Absolutely. He trained me. I was his replacement.
So you're not going to believe this. But I'm media trained by Lee Habib, like I am his protege. Okay,
You're looking at the first Anakin Skywalker that was trained by Lee Habib right now. Okay,
I must be like 3.0 or 4.0.
20 years ago. All right, so,
that's incredible.
Lee and I do some business now. Lee brings me in on special projects. But Lee and Laura Ingraham went to college together. They went to UVA Law School together. And then he trained me, and I was there. Lee was there for about 5 years. I was there for 4. So between Lee and I, we sat next to the great lady almost a decade.
Wow.
And then there were some other impressive people that came after that. I got moved to then launch the Monica Crowley Show, which I launched. And then I launched a show with John Solomon when he was still at the Washington Times. And then I was brought in by Glenn Beck to help launch the Blaze Radio Network.
Yeah.
And early on there, it wasn't, I wasn't doing the TV stuff, But I was overseeing Buck Sexton. I was overseeing Chris Salcedo, who have gone on to do bigger things at Newsmax and on radio elsewhere. And I've been on, speaking of Alabama, I've been on with Rick and Bubba. They're on. I've been on the Rick and Bubba University, which is their Blaze show on the weekend, a TV show.
Yeah.
They're good friends of mine, Speedy and the gang down there. So I came from broadcasting, and then about a decade ago, because for certain reasons in the sort of syndicated radio world, which I'm sure I don't want to bore the audience, but I decided to reverse engineer what I was doing. So instead of being a producer of shows and getting all this incoming, I decided to become the harasser. I decided to knock on doors instead of just answer. And it helped to have, Monica and Laura as clients and as friends. The two of them, they're kind of like my big sisters. Laura Ingram, Monica Crowley. By the way, Monica Crowley, any second now, is going to be confirmed as Assistant Secretary of State. So she will be over there working with Marco Rubio. Right. Yeah. Take some stuff off of Rubio's plate, because right now Rubio's doing everything. Rubio's got 4 or 5 jobs. He's even answering the door at the White House. He's out putting waxes, doing a little wax on the beast. He's playing a little Cuban guitar there when they have visitors. I mean, they're working Rubio to the bone. I mean, it's just like,
I thought I saw him mowing the grass yesterday.
Yeah, it's like the one Hispanic guy, Trump's got in the Oval Office, and I heard he didn't even give him off for Cinco de Mayo. So I don't know what that, but all those, he's not Mexican, he's Cuban, so there is that. But no, Monica and Laura, they are mentors. Andrew Breitbart also was, and Habib was another. And I am someone that collects mentors, not because I didn't have parents in the home. I had that too, but I'm greedy. I wanted more. So, and look, the thing I tell everyone, not just as an author myself, I'm talking to young people, or as a publicist that has to media train people, or as a producer, and sometimes I get brought in damage control at halftime to fix things, is that you don't know everything. And like Habib used to say to me, what is it? Today's show is the enemy of tomorrow's show, right? Don't walk out of the studio patting yourself on the back and lay on the Barca lounger. He used to say, right? So look, and Habib and I got along. He's from Jersey, I'm from Philly, so we had some commonalities and some weird enemies on some things. But especially in the Trump world, in the media, I mean, you have to be a killer. You have to be. So for the last decade, long before I got this harebrained idea to write my own books, I've been managing everyone else's books. And not just that, but, nonprofits and NGOs and, lobbying firm. I mean, I do it all, think tanks and so on, campaigns. Super PACs. We do all of it. But I will tell you, when the OG came down the golden escalator, my life as a publicist changed. Because the one thing that doesn't get talked about much is that in 2016, when all these different, 15 really, when all these different, Trump was running against 18 people. Trump put, 18 scalps on the wall, right? He taxidermed them all. Lindsey Graham and Rand Paul. He got them all. They're all up there. Pataki and Santorum and all of them. And some of them are now in his cabinet, like Rubio and Mike Huckabee and others. So Huckabee's now the ambassador to Israel. But look, that's what happens. Winning cures all ills. But here in town, and this doesn't get talked about much, there's really 2 types of firms here. And the American people need to know this. Alabama, the Bible, you guys need to know this. Because this is where, these are the people that, they live high on the hog. They vacuum up money. They're deep state type people. They're establishment type people. Uniparty, right? You use this term, right? Because the American people get screwed. Not many PR firms or what they call GR firms, which we are not, although they call quite often. It's a government relations firm, right? Where they've got an in-house lobbyist and an in-house attorney. And, they're the people that you call when, you're some rich guy in Georgia and you want, the sugarcane industry to do well, and then you try to get, it's a whole thing that goes on, right? It can get you in trouble too. So on the PR side, though, most of the goofballs here in town threw in with all of Trump's opponents. Because you remember early on there, Roger Stone was around, Corey Lewandowski was around, but we threw in with Trump. And, that sort of migrated into working on books that were pro-Trump books during the first term. The big one was Judge Jeanine Pirro. Judge Jeanine, earns her living sticking her, stiletto up people's rear ends, including my own. She's done it to me many times. She's like my unofficial New York City grandmother. She likes to dunk on me. But she loves me enough that she has hired me 4 times now, since then, on all 4 of her books. But my success with Judge Jeanine's book allowed me to then acquire Donald Trump Jr. as a client and do his books. And again, made the New York Times bestseller list. And now, full circle, Don Jr. has interviewed me for this book behind me. So as you can see, you can go from a behind-the-scenes person to an in-front-of-the-scenes person. And one of the reasons I did that, I decided in 2022 to put out The Woking Dead, 2024 to put out the White Privilege album, not just because I'm Irish Catholic and a masochist, which we all are. And when you're a Philadelphia sports fan, right, you can become a masochist. I mean, you can. Now the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, are the unofficial home of Alabama Crimson Tide alumni, as well as Georgia Bulldogs. We do have 15 or 16 Bulldogs and Crimson Tide players on our team. But as a Penn State person, haven't seen, we got closer this year. We got to the Final Four in the college football playoffs. So, we are getting a little closer. I mean, we've been around a long time. But, recent successes make us masochists there too.
Yes.
But look, I guess I wanted to feel the pain that I put all my clients through. So I put these 2 books out, and they're actually unofficial sequels to each other. This is volume 2 behind me. And volume 3 is being edited as we speak. So maybe, if I don't bore the audience, I could come back next year and we could talk about that. And one of the things I found as a sports guy, right, as a guy that grew up, in a competitive environment, an S-talking environment, I grew up on the playground, and if anyone's met any Philadelphia people, I mean, from Ben Franklin to Bradley Cooper, we are, we're a different type of people. With Kobe Bryant, Kevin Hart, Sylvester Stallone, you name it, we're a different type. Jesse Waters on Fox News. Some people don't like Jesse's style because Jesse, like AJ Rice, will dunk on you if you get out of line. Mark Levin will dunk on you. Michelle Malkin will dunk on you. Even Chris Matthews, who's a left-wing guy, he'll even come after you. So look, I put out these 2 books mainly because no one wants a coach who doesn't play the game.
Yeah.
No one wants that. So I'm not just one of these other publicists that sort of hides behind the Venetian blinds and just, fires a bunch of BS out into the ether. I write columns, I write books, I do speeches because, a lot of these high-profile people, and it was never a guarantee that throwing in with Trump 10 years ago would have turned out to be what it's been. But my relationship with Don Jr., and then what has gone on here with this second term, Trump is a disruptor. He has collected disruptors here for this second term. Publius PR is a disruptor. We like to think we're at the center of the MAGA, Maha cinematic universe. Because for all of 2023, we not only were working with Trump's publishing house, which is co-owned by Don Jr., and they put out Carrie Lake's book and Charlie Kirk's book and Judge Jeanine and Peter Navarro and many others. We were working with RFK Jr. Super PAC, and we were working for the Vivek campaign. So all these guys, and Elon, we never worked with him, but these are disruptors. So as Trump was putting together his cabinet, he was putting together people that were going to be as big a disrupt. Because look, if Reagan was the great, emancipator, or Lincoln was the great emancipator, and Reagan was the great communicator, Trump is the great disruptor. And unlike the first term, he knows now, you can't just lop the head off of each of these departments. You have to drop a bunker buster 10 levels down.
Yep.
And that's why you got Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth, who's one of ours, and Tulsi Gabbard, who's one of ours, and Scott Besson, who's one of ours, and many, many others. Many others. Dan Bongino is one of ours. He's over at the FBI with Cash. We worked on all these people's books. And it's not just the big names. I mean, we've got undersecretaries of the Navy and all kinds of things. And look, I didn't know it was going to be this way. I had no idea. But I mean, as I sit here, we've got, 20 or 30 people either in the White House or, Tammy Brewer, like I said earlier, Monica is going to be confirmed soon. So, but that's from me being in this world, in the freaking arena, trained by Lee Habib, one of many of my Jedi masters, and, basically collecting people kind of like if I was like Nick Fury in the Avengers. I was collecting the Avengers slowly.
Yeah.
And now they're all driving the left nuts because there's no daylight between them. They're all interlocked like the 300 with their shields and their spears, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're locked in. They're locked in. And that's why they're trying to play these little funny games with Hegseth and then, this one and that one, and they go after my boy Sergio Gore and so on. But I'm going to tell you something. The other thing with this White House, where there's no daylight, is the man that is the vice president of the United States. The Hillbilly Ninja. Incredible. The Hillbilly Ninja. Yeah. You guys should like the Hillbilly Ninja down there in Alabama. And look, the Hillbilly Ninja came from nothing. Piss and vinegar came from nothing. Right? From the holler. Went to Ohio State and then Marine Corps, went to Yale Law School. And look, that's the future. Don Jr., Rubio, Hegseth, Vance, you're going to see these guys do other things, run for other things probably. I don't have any inside info, although I might. But my point is that, that's the team he has assembled. And look,
sure.
Make no mistake about Donald John Trump. And this goes for the whole family, whole Trump family. They're not just looking for disruptors that have high caliber resumes. Trump is also casting a movie. He's casting a movie. And that drives the left crazy too. You know what? Seeing Kristi Noem ducking kicks, roundhouse kicks from illegal alien MS-13 members. Kristi Noem is out there, Caribou Barbie. She looks great. I mean, most people want to get arrested by Kristi Noem. I mean, let's be honest. Like if you're gonna get pulled over, and you're gonna get charged, I mean, it's not a bad thing to get arrested by Kristi and get booked by Pam Bondi. That's not a bad thing. And Trump's crazy like a fox, man. He knows that. He's casting a movie. And look, he's got Hegseth and Van. He's got a bunch of leading men. He's got himself. And look, he's coming for you. He's coming for you. And while he's doing it, they're going to have fun. They're going to troll you. They're going to troll. I mean, look, Trump got rid of the Prime Minister of Canada before he was even sworn in. The Prime Minister of Canada was gone. He said, "What is the regime change in Canada?" So, if Putin wants to play games and Little Rocket Man and the Hitlers and headscarves in Iran, the mulocracy in Iran, if they want to play little games, I mean, look, this, all bets are off, right? I mean, Trump's up at 3 a.m. thinking about things. He's not sleeping like Joe Biden was, right?
Yeah.
So look, that's what I do. It's my day job. Is I run Publius PR. We help, elevate all types of people. A lot of the anti-COVID doctors we worked with. We helped out some of the J6ers that needed media. A lot of, we work on certain campaigns and so we don't do a lot of campaigns. The Vivek thing was a special thing because I mean he was a disruptor and we worked with him, and he was just going around decapitating people too. But look, a lot of good governors out there. You know, you can't work with them all, DeSantis and others. And then, you know, writing my books. I mean, look, man, if you're going to be out there and you're going to work with these people, you need to understand these issues. And I'm by no means am I, you know, a 4-star general, except unless I'm a 4-star general against wokeism and against political correctness, right? And against the 1619 project, not the 1819 news. But I will tell you, both the Woking Dead and the White Privilege album are about that. They're about fighting against these sort of twin, you know, Siamese twins, Geminis of evil, of wokeism and globalism, and pushing back and doing it in my own way. I mean, I was raised on comedy. I was raised, you know, not just on stand-ups and, you know, everyone from Carlin to Pryor to Dice to, you know, all of them. But also on Limbaugh and Howard Stern as a radio person. You know, Rush used to say, you know, his job was to use irreverent humor to illustrate truth, to use absurdity to illustrate truth. So I try to do that with the books. I mean, look, yeah, I mean, the titles and the subtitles of my book make some people's, you know, some people that are 300 pounds with blue hair, their heads might explode. And some of the chapter titles and so on may do that as well. But I am here to educate with humor. Look, you got to have some fun doing this, right? You never know when, you know, Brian, you and I are just going to get drug off to the gulag.
Yeah. I think one of the things I learned from Lee and kind of being in this space is that the goal, if you're in the content producing space and we're trying to win the culture war, the goal is to inform and educate.
That's right.
And the exchange is, if you're going to inform and educate, you have to entertain and engage. That's right. If someone's going to spend 30 minutes or an hour on your content, they need to be entertained and engaged. And then if you're going to entertain and engage them, the purpose is because you want to inform and educate and vice versa. And so I think that's a really good job in you know, making your books that make really good points, but also extremely enjoyable to read. I love that. What motivated you to jump into writing on this particular subject?
Well, you know, The Woking Dead was written over almost a 4-year period. And sort of like with film or theater or anything, poetry, if you're not the type of writer that operates in blocks, right, where you get writer's block, you know, I mean, Hemingway would churn out 5 books by the time Fitzgerald could get done 1. And they were all hanging out at the same places, drinking the same amount of liquor. But certain people, you know, it takes them more time. Guy like Woody Allen's put out 1 movie a year for like almost 50 years. Until the Me Too Mafia went after him. And he had to slow down and find new distributors. So if you create a formula, if you look at your friend Lee, he's got a formula for Our American Stories. He's got this formula. So for me, it's look, for writers, I mean, Tom Clancy, Vince Flynn, guys like that, Ted Bell, they all have Jack Carr, they all have a formula for the type of books they write, right? And others do too. Others have over the years. I mean, Tarantino has a formula, right?
Yeah.
You know, Scorsese has a formula. So for me, it took 4 years for the first book, but only 2 years for this one. And this last one took me about 9 months. So I have sort of mastered, like the anti-woke samurai, a certain, you know, formula here. Why? I've always been pushing back against political correctness. The idea, though, of what wokeism is and where it comes from, and its roots being in cultural Marxism, fascinated me. Controlling the language fascinates me. Someone once said that once the comedians are afraid, you know, authoritarianism has arrived. There's a section in The Woking Dead called Searching for Comedy in the Marxist World, which is a play on Albert Brooks's movie Searching for Comedy in the Muslim World. And there's really no difference in the sense that any type of authoritarian jackboot that wants to control speech, in particular, jokes, whether it's the Me Too movement or the Taliban firing those RPGs at those Buddhist statues. These are all about erasing something. And in particular, not just free speech or freedom of expression or controlling jokes or controlling music or controlling film or theater or radio hosts or TV hosts or whatever it is. It's controlling thoughts and in particular reining in Western civilization. What is that? Well, it's four legs of the stool. The Greco-Roman Judeo-Christian civilization. And someone's always been after it. Always. Could be Genghis Khan. Could be the ACLU. They've been after it.
If you're running a ministry or you own a business, my guess is that you've been thinking about starting a podcast for a while now, but for various reasons it hasn't happened yet. Send me an email. I need to personally connect you with Yonder Child Media. They built this studio in 2 days and tackle all of the production. I just come in, start talking, and leave. It's that easy. They do everything else. Whether you want to record at your business or a home office like they just built for me, you come in, start talking, and Yonder Child will do everything else. Send me an email. That's going to be BRYAN, Brian.Dawson, DAWSON at 1819news.com, and I'd be happy to personally connect you.
This last 10 years of DEI and ESG and wokeism and cancel culture and triggering and snowflakes and safe spaces and all the rest of it, I'm fascinated by it because as a Philly disruptor, long before these terms existed, I've been, using my, F around and find out formula on everyone forever. And I come from the humanities departments. So I was at war with these people in the late 90s and college and early 2000s. Most people that go to college, doesn't matter what college, could be a state school, could be Libs, could be some Harvard thing, could be some junior Ivy or whatever the hell it is. It doesn't matter. You have a choice to make. You can placate the teacher, go along, get your A, keep your GPA up, and move on. Or, like an Irish Catholic that invented a car bomb, right? And we did invent the car bomb. That's one thing, and I'm not just talking about the drink. I'm not just talking the drink's good too. Don't get me wrong.
The IRA car bomb.
That's right. My point is, Islam copied that off of us a long time. Anyway, my point is that I wasn't going to sit there and just allow this nonsense to go on. And if you're in, the humanities departments and the liberal arts, sections in the faculty lounges, you can go at them and get a C. I was more than willing to lose GPA to fight these people. And I didn't have Charlie Kirk to come in and back me up back then. I didn't have these things that I could sort of record their asses as they were saying this crazy stuff. I just had to go at them like a gladiator. You just had to go at them. So what I would try to do is counter-program them. They give out their syllabus. On day 2, I give out my syllabus. And, the teachers that were intellectually honest, like the boomers that they were raised by World War II vets that, they might have strayed a little bit and voted for Reagan once or twice, that maybe they're libs or Democrats, but they like the party of Bill Clinton more than the party of my girlfriend, Jasmine Crockett. She is my girlfriend, by the way. And I will tell you, they like that because most of these idiot college kids, they're asleep on the desk anyway. It's like, this little a-hole not only is going to read all my crap, he's bringing in his own stuff and telling everyone, well, if you want the alternate perspective on this issue, read this. So I'm counter-programming. And look, that's what Rush Limbaugh was. That's what Andrew Breitbart was. Once upon a time, that's what Matt Drudge was. Now, Drudge, I don't know what happened there. But talk radio, podcasting, all these websites we now have and the Rumble and the Truth Social and the Getter and all this stuff. It's all to counter program to get outside of control. And that's what my books are. They're look, some of it's gallows humor, right? Someone once said that the definition of comedy is to transform horror into humor, right? Tragedy plus time equals comedy, right? And they're saying like, well, okay, well, you can make a September 11th joke, but it better be funny. You can make a Holocaust joke. Seinfeld talks about this, but it better be funny. It better be funny. Funny is the key.
Yeah.
And that's relative, which is why it can't it can't be controlled. The court jester was either funny or he got his head chopped off by the king, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you have to do. And I'm a millennial. I'm a geriatric millennial, right? Gandalf. I'm Gandalf the millennial. But I will tell you, I was raised by boomers. My grandparents fought in World War II. My two grandfathers, and which I shout out them in the dedication section of this book. I try to push back anytime someone tells me that I can't talk about something. And look, you see some of these comedians, whether it's Chappelle or Ricky Gervais, if you tell them, and Chappelle and Ricky Gervais aren't exactly sitting around, watching Fox News all day and reading Zero Hedge or National Review or the Washington Times or whatever that Gateway Pundit, whatever the hell it is. They're not. But if you tell them that they can't make fun of something or they can't joke about something, that's exactly what they're going to do. And that's what, George Carlin and Rodney Dangerfield and Joan Rivers and Lenny Bruce and old school Howard Stern, before Howard, lost his mind with too many booster shots. Him and Billy Joel are out there giving each other, too much baby oil being drank at the Diddy parties. I don't know what's happening to Howard, but the point is that, that's what comedy's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a revolution, and not just comedy, journalism, rock and roll. So when you see all these Hollywood people wrap their arms around Zelensky's bombs and wrap their arms around the pharmaceutical companies and wrap their arms around the Pentagon, you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute. So like Eric Clapton and Van Morrison, no vaccines to go to their concert. You could come to their concert. The two old guys, boomer guys, right? And there was some, problems with some of the venues and so on. But you will recall the Gen X apocalypse, Black Flag, Rage Against the Machine. That's the name of the band, Rage Against the Machine. But to go to a Rage Against the Machine concert, you better have your vaccine passport. Okay? There ain't no raging against Pfizer. There's no raging against Moderna. Meanwhile, Van Morrison, my Northern Irish brother over there, he's telling everyone blank you. He's giving the double tap. But that's the thing is that there are some true liberals, and that really is the heart of why I write my books. It's what the Walking Dead was kind of like a unified theory of wokeness, kind of talking about all the different things. With the White Privilege album, I drilled down on one of the flavors because wokeism's kind of like Baskin and Robbins' flavors, right? So I drilled into one of the primary flavors, and that is the race hustle in particular, right? Not just the Very Fine People hoax, but George Floyd, the patron saint of fentanyl, and all the rest of it. I get into all of that. And this book has 12 chapters. Each chapter is a month of the year. And I set out to do a couple things. One, I try to tell some historical stories about Americans that risked blood, treasure, and reputation on behalf of minorities, on behalf of African Americans. Whether it's Branch Rickey or whether it's, with the Brooklyn Dodgers with Jackie Robinson, or whether it's, getting Nelson Mandela out of prison or Abraham Lincoln or whoever. But also, the other half of the book is a defense of three things: Western civilization, which we already talked about, the middle class, and the nuclear family. Because when you hear this term white privilege, it's code. And there's nothing I like doing better but taking their language, kidnapping it, turning it around, weaponizing it, using it back against the left.
Sure.
But it's code. It's code for Western Civ. It's code for the nuclear family. It's code for the middle class. Because true Marxists, and cultural Marxists in particular, they don't like these things. Because these are the things that prevent them from having a true, Stalinist type revolution.
Utopia. Yeah.
Right, because look, if you look at everywhere in the 20th century, communism was able to emerge, whether it was some sort of autocracy run by some like gangster family or a colonial power, like Vietnam was a French colonial power. So, where you got the Castro boys in Cuba, you got the Romanovs, where you have this royal family that's in Russia, the Soviet, and Lenin and Stalin kill, any of these things. Mao taking over China, going through the Cultural Revolution, where he's trying to purge China of all Western influences. I mean, this is what we're up against. And that's what, when you hear white privilege, or you see the trans mafia trying to whack someone, right? Or the race hustle, whether it's Ibrahim Kendi X, whatever the hell his name, XY, doesn't matter where it's coming from. So, look at what Trump's trying to get this stuff out of the military now and out of the State Department.
Sure.
It got in there because, look, most of these places where communism takes over, there's no middle class. You have the serfs and you have the elites. So here, where you have a middle class, you have to destroy them, Brian. You have to. And how do you do that? Well, you redistribute the third world to their front yard. You make the public school system trash. You don't let them use charters to go across town, right? You hit them with the Green New Deal. You hit them with $8.
The family.
Yeah. You make energy costs go through the roof. And then on top of it, you get them addicted to government. So the nuclear family shot. Why do you think Black Lives Matter put up on their website that the nuclear family was some kind of construct of white supremacy? It was like right next to their love letter to Hamas.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm doing with the books. We have fun doing it. The 12 months of privilege are the 12 chapters. So January privilege is chapter 1 all the way through December privilege, which is chapter 12, where, we celebrate Kwanzaa, which I know most of this audience does. So they will be appreciative.
You got us.
Appreciative of Happy Kwanzaa, everyone. Chapter 12.
That's good. Kind of hit. The reason your book piqued my interest is because I think we're at a turning point on so many of these things. And one is, I think people just have had a belly full of the woke. I think the trans stuff was a step too far. And then people either consciously or subconsciously began to realize that the trans stuff was actually connected to the race hustling. It was all from this woke worldview, and it's all part of the same system. It's all part of what's trying to destroy Western civilization, as you said. And so everyone's had a belly full of it. And then you see some of the things that J.D. Vance is saying and Donald Trump is saying and just pushing back against this. But people have had a belly full, and I think white guilt was something that was capitalized on specifically in the churches, specifically in the South, where I am. These modern evangelical churches really bought the woke stuff hook, line, and sinker. And in our kindness, our empathy, and our sympathy were weaponized against us, and that's part of the playbook for them. And so, but that the white guilt was like a storehouse that they had in like a bank account, and now they're writing checks expecting there to be white guilt, and it's going away. And quite frankly, I don't know if I'm going to say it scares me, but I feel that there's going to be some type of an eruption in race relations in our country because of it. What are your thoughts?
Well, yes. Look, a lot of the a lot of the DEI, ESG, wokeism was being pushed by, at least in the North and in California, in the Northeast, and it sounds like, down south as well. What I call the pumpkin spice mafia. These are the virtue signaling wackos, with the signs in the front yard, right? With the in this house we vaccinate our goldfish, and in this in this house we hug Hamas. I'm in love with midgets, and you've seen the signs, right?
Yes.
And mostly white people.
Yeah.
Just like you think black people celebrate Kwanzaa? They don't celebrate Kwanzaa. A bunch of white humanities professors celebrate Kwanzaa. And that's part of what this last election was about was not only maybe some of the virtue signaling white people snapping out of it, although I'm not sure they snapped out of it as much as you do, because it does not appear that they've learned their lesson from the 2024 election. On some of these things, I mean, it seems to me that they're willing to double down on some things, and we can go through that list in a second. But let me just address overall. You saw Hitler, ultra MAGA, fascist, Trump. They called him all these names, and yet he got the Jews in the suburbs of Philadelphia and the Muslims in the suburbs of Detroit to vote the same way for him and not for Kamala. He got African Americans in Pittsburgh and Las Vegas and Atlanta and many, many places, especially African American males, to move towards him. And above all else, there were two blue walls that went down. The one in the Great Lake, the Rust Belt blue wall, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, that came down, but another blue wall came down as well. And that blue wall runs along the Texas-Mexican border. And that was of Democrat counties, mostly Hispanic, all voting for Trump.
Yep.
Look, if you were the Democrat Party and you thought, sooner or later African Americans are going to wake up and start voting Republican again, we need a replacement for the intellectual plantation. I know. Let's import millions of Catholic Hispanics that never get divorced and never have abortions, and let's treat them like the Marxist dumps that they just escaped from. If that was your grand plan, you blew it. Like Bobby De Niro says in Copland, you blew it, right? And the reality is that all of these groups, and Catholics in general writ large, all voted for Trump in this last election. If you look at a map of California, county by county, and you look at red and blue from 2000 to 2020 to 2024, if I were a Democrat white person in California, I would be very scared, because it's only a matter of maybe 8 years from now, 12, if they're lucky, California will be retaken by the Republican Party, by Hispanics, by Hispanic Catholics, because they don't want this. So yes, white, liberal, virtue signaling dorks push this stuff. The linguini spines, the people that lost their virginity when they were 35, they push this stuff. White dudes for Harris, right? And Waltz, Waltz is out there with his little pinky in the air. He's running around drinking Chardonnay. He's excited. He's like Richard Simmons. He's running around. He's got the little shorts on. Coach. Oh, my God.
Tampon Tim?
Yeah, don't let Tampy Tim into the locker room with you. You never know what he'll bring in there. Look. So I see Trump putting together a coalition of a multi-ethnic, blue-collar coalition, because I think of this. Not all cultures are created equal. Not all civilizations are created equal. And we are not a multicultural country. We're a multi-ethnic country. But we have one culture here. And most people, regardless of color, regardless of who you go home with at night, don't want the Magna Carta and the rule of law and the scientific method and the Declaration of Independence and Christopher Columbus and the Pilgrims and everyone else thrown out to be replaced by Bud Light ads with a tranny in the bathtub drinking 2 Bud Light pounders. No. So these different types of people from all different backgrounds said enough's enough.
Yep.
And this was a woke Waterloo moment for the left. Now, are they learning their lessons? The majority, I would say no. But they blew it. They look, the Democrat Party running around, they're saying to themselves, we need our Joe Rogan. Well, wait a minute. Joe Rogan, you had Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016. Tulsi Gabbard voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016.
Yep.
You lost them. And you lost Elon Musk. And you lost the oldest male heir of the most famous Democrat family, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You lost them. How did you lose them? What did you do? You blew it. Because, look, at the end there was only maybe 6 to 10% of undecideds there in the final days of this last election. And where were they hiding? They weren't hiding at MSNBC or Fox. They weren't hiding at the Chamber of Commerce, the New York Times, or wherever. They were hiding in these regular Joe. They call this now the manosphere. These regular podcasts that Trump, because of Barron and Don Jr. saying, look, you got to go on here. You got to go on with Rogan. You got to go on with Schultz. You got to go on with the Hodge twins or the Nelk boys. You got to talk to Theo Vaughn and Barstool Sports. And that's where they were. Because those people, look, they want to be entertained. They want to bust balls. They don't want their language corrected. Right? And some of what I write about is for that audience. Because if you go through this book, I mean, I write the way I talk. I write in the language of the common man. Right? Don't open this book and think you're getting, Hamlet. Right? So, but I think regular people, they don't wake up every day and say, I'm going to go to work today. I'm a Republican that goes to work. Most people don't wake up and filter their life through identity politics, through wokeism. It doesn't matter. And even like, political parties, right? I mean, they'll pay attention at certain times and certain years, but most people they as Breitbart used to say, they swim downstream from culture.
Sure.
So if you follow them home and you reach into Sally's backpack and you pull out genderqueer, right? Or you pull out don't touch my hair, right? Anti-racist baby. You pull this crap out. I mean, right. So then now you've come into my house.
Yeah.
So now I'm coming for you.
Yeah. And I think I guess where I'm saying is where I see the shift. You're right. The pumpkin spice soy latte crowd is doubling down. I think where I'm technically seeing it is like, so let's go back to the summer of love, 2020, George Floyd, that whole thing, Derek Chauvin. Then we find out that he actually overdosed on fentanyl. He wasn't actually killed by, it's just, but all that, everything was burnt to the ground. You can go back before that and go into like St. Louis in 2014 or Ferguson or whatever.
Street. Yep.
Yeah, all that stuff, but specifically on the race-related stuff where whether it was Michael Brown, whether it was Ferguson, whether it was George Floyd, whether it was all this stuff, it just keeps building and building and building, is that you like the Carmelo situation. Okay, that's the latest. And then there's a terrible kind of reaction from the kind of conservative working, white working class that's, not exactly the example where the pushback should be coming, but it is. But Carmelo, here's this guy who stabs a kid to death, and raises $500,000 shortly after, buys an Escalade and a mansion, and that's his punishment for killing someone. And then, recently, earlier this week, late last week, there was a woman who was in Minnesota that's been completely overran by Somalians. And some 5-year-old Somali kid was trying to steal something out of her baby bag, and she called the kid an N-word. Now there's a bunch of people threatening to kill her. So she has a give, send, go. And there's like this weird, proxy race war going on give, send, go right now between $520,000 to the guy that stabbed a white kid in the heart, and then $630,000 to the lady that called the guy an N-word. And it's like,
Sure.
That's what I'm talking about. That's brewing.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing to observe.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that sort of plays into, some of the fever pitch that is rising here in the first 100 days of Trump. One of those issues is a speech issue.
Yeah.
Speech is protected, even terrible speech.
Yeah.
Even terrible speech is protected. And the other one's murder.
Yes, stabbing someone in the heart is not protected.
So I don't think there's moral equivalency there, although, people pick up the banners for all kinds of nutty stuff and raise money for it. I will tell you this. For the last 100 days, the Democrat Party of Carmelo Anthony and the race hustle, because I see who his lawyers are and I see what shows they're going on.
Yeah.
These things don't happen in isolation. The slip and fall race hustle lawyers, the heir apparents of Johnny Cochran come showing up immediately.
Yeah.
But who have the Democrats been telling us in the last 100 days that they are? And if they are telling us this, then we should believe them. Well, they're telling us that they are the party of turning planes around filled with MS-13 coming to a kindergarten near you, cul-de-sac near you. They're the party of assassinating healthcare executives on the streets. Luigi the musical. Okay, we're going to have a musical about Luigi. Right? They're the party of going on vacation to El Salvador, bringing back Maryland dads. Right? Kilmar. We got Luigi. We got Kilmar. Then we got Mahmoud on Columbia's campus hunting Jews down. So that's the new national sport for the Democrat Party. We got Ivy League. We're going to hunt Jews down. Snow White and the 7 anti-Semites that bombed at the box office. That should tell you something about Rachel Ziegler, who hates Israel. Then you got the Tesla burners, right? You got AOC and Bernie Sanders at Coachella. Bernie Sanders is leading the youth movement. He's 83 years old, right? You got people upset that they can't send men into Nancy Mace's bathroom on Capitol Hill. So this is the first 100 days of Democrats, too. This is the first 100 days of them. And then you've got, and I foreshadowed it earlier, the love of my life, the new spokesman on top of all of this. She's on every show in America. She's mad. She's mad because of Trump's tariffs. She's mad because the tariffs have cut down on her supply of those fake eyelashes. And that is Jasmine Crockett, my girlfriend. I know I missed her on Valentine's Day, but better luck next year. She's now the face of the Democrat Party. She is the Disney remake of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Okay? So that's what we're dealing with. This is the first 100 days. And as a marketing guy that wants to increase our majorities for the GOP in Congress next year in the midterm elections, I say, keep it up, guys. But this is not a serious party. This is the crap they're rallying around. Right? So look, that's their first 100 days. This is not a mainstream party. This isn't a party of triangulation with Bill Clinton and Al Gore, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to lose big. They're going to lose big next year in the midterms if they keep it up.
Yeah, and they're going to. A big bill here in Alabama that we were following closely at the national stage was obviously Coach Tuberville went to war with the Biden Department of Defense because they wanted to pay women to go kill their children in other states. They wanted to pay their travel and pay their time off so that they could travel out of a state like Alabama where you can't do that, in the states where you could. And he said, yeah, we're not going to do that, and that's against the Hyde Amendment. And he went to war for 10 months, got stabbed in the back by all the Republicans and everything else, went through all that. Well, then Trump comes in, signs an executive order that basically, completely vindicates Coach Tuberville. And then Coach Tuberville goes to get that executive order solidified and codified in legislation, and it got voted down. And it's just like,
sure.
And again, well, not that one. The one that he got codified to get voted down was men and women's sports. That's what it was. So that's the other thing he was really big on. He tried to codify keeping men out of women's sports, and that one failed. And that was just like, what in the world?
Sure.
So,
And I mean, look, the Republican Party, make no mistake, the rank and file sort of political type, especially here in town, of the Republican Party. I mean, they're all just staring at their watches. They've been defeated. The Paul Ryan types, the John Boehner types, the Mitch McConnell types. Thune, is doing a little tap dance to keep Trump happy. Johnson too. But I mean, the reality is that, they don't like this new coalition. They don't like the populism.
yeah.
They don't like, Tulsi and RFK Jr. bringing their people in. But I guess the question is, what the hell were you going to do running McCain's and Romney's and McCain's and Romney's and McCain's and Romney's every 4 years and lose? They loved it. They like losing honorably, right?
Yeah.
The heroes that were captured, the heroes that weren't captured, the heroes with the magical underwear, the heroes with the silos full of grain. That's what they wanted. They wanted people that would lose honorably and just say, oh, you're right. I'll accept the outcome of the stolen election. I'll go home and have my tapioca pudding and my freaking green tea and whatever else. That's what they wanted. Bootlickers, right? Whereas Trump and Vance are disruptors. And, that party that loved to lose honorably, that were basically controlled opposition.
Yeah.
Like the Harlem Globetrotters playing against the Washington Generals. Right? Washington General's job was to lose to the Harlem Globetrotters. Right? Yeah. It's like we're watching WWE. No, I'm joking. WWE is real. I'm lying. But the point is, it was to keep, the barbarians, the Tea Party, Breitbart.com, talk radio, to keep us from going nuts. Well, look, Donald Trump, if the Republican Party had not been behaving the way they did, forget the Democrats.
Yep.
I mean, look, Elon and his boys, the Goonies, the Doe Goonies, they are auditing the federal government. And what are they discovering? Well, they're discovering insane things, woke things, DEI things, so on. But here's the thing, guys. A lot of the stuff is not just Biden stuff. A lot of this stuff has been there and been going on for decades. Under Obama, under George W. Bush, under Biden, and so on. So, and in particular, under Republican control of the Senate, Republican control of the House, and other than some guys like Tom Coburn and, Rand Paul and Ron Paul and a few others, everyone was okay with this money being flushed down the toilet. Our money, right? Where was Lindsey Graham outraged about the stuff that Musk is finding? Oh, now they're outraged. Oh, now, whoa, we didn't know. We've been here for freaking 30 years. Mitch McConnell. We didn't know. Foghorn Leghorn, right? Mitch McConnell?
Yeah.
Foghorn Leghorn? Right. So these people were in charge. So, look, you can't let the Republicans off the hook for some of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, that is we'll put a bow on it real quick here. I can tell I could sit here and talk to you for hours. We could do a Joe Rogan episode. So the White Privilege album, where's the best place for folks to find this, AJ?
Anywhere books are sold. Amazon's probably the easiest. We just put out an audio version, so you can do the audio version. And, the Walking Dead's there. We just released a paperback of that. There's a couple versions of that. You can get audio, paperback, but anywhere books are sold. So Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. Books A Million's got a little more of a conservative bent to it. So if you want to give them your money, that's good. I think Walmart, Target, a lot of these places. So, get yourself a couple copies, some for yourself, some for your 300-pound blue-haired niece or nephew. Maybe right. you could help convert them. They're all graduating now. Time's coming up here. They're graduating. A lot of them are graduating with bachelor's degrees in underwater lesbian basket weaving. So maybe
Yes.
you can give them, one of these books, and maybe some humor can sort of knock the wokeism out of them.
Lord willing. What about Twitter? Any social medias where people can find you?
Yeah, at Publius PR or AJ Rice. I'm on pretty much all of them.
Okay.
At Publius PR on X, Twitter, and AJ Rice on Instagram, and Publius PR on Instagram, and Rumble and TikTok and all the rest of the spy networks.
There you go. That's it. Well, AJ Rice, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, man. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother. Look, you're a patriot. You keep fighting, okay?
Yes, sir.
Get after it. Thank you.
All right, guys, that'll wrap it up for this week. As always, put your trust in God and keep your powder dry.